For the first time since the inception of early voting, this is worth a tweet, Andrew, Republicans have moved ahead of Democrats in casting ballots early. Not just incrementally, but by more than 3,000 ballots. This is unprecedented and does not include more than 600,000 unaffiliated voters who also participate in early voting and tend to go center right. Now, everyone, this is very important. Some people say, but Charlie, I'm worrying that we're decreasing our election day powder. Wait, hold on. So what? These are people that you don't have to worry about showing up on election day because they've already banked their vote. You don't have to worry about if they get COVID, they get sick, there's a hurricane or a terrorist attack. They're in the system. So you should celebrate that. The moment when you vote does not matter. You don't get extra points for voting on election day. The order in which you count the ballots does not matter. It just matters whether or not you vote. And here's the other kicker. It's not that we're just reorganizing election day voters for early voters. That's actually not the case. Of course, there's a little bit of that happening. But these are net new voters. When you allow early voting to occur, what you're doing, and you're celebrating it, is you're increasing the amount of days that lower likely voters can participate in the election, and it allows your get out the vote to be far more efficient. It allows your get out the vote operation to be far more precise. And Democrats are freaking out about this, and I honestly think we will actually still have an election day surge. I think we're still going to have a surge. Why? Because now we can narrow our universe and say, oh, these 600,000 people already voted. These 800,000 people already voted. Now we can really focus on text messages, calls, postcards, and get out the vote for that smaller universe. Okay, Blake continues with us. Blake, there's even more tape to play, isn't there?
There's a bit, but I actually want to quote this first. We've had Mark Halpern on this show. We followed him a lot this cycle. He's gotten a lot of good reporting. He's been ahead of the curve on a lot of stuff. And he has his show in the morning and in the evening. And so I only got to check on this now, but he was talking about the Democrat reaction to Harris's town hall in his show this morning. I don't have the clip of it. I'm just reading the quote, though. And he says, for Democratic pundits who are trying to be poker-faced, they are clearly feeling what a lot of Democrat donors are feeling and Democrat elected officials are feeling, which is there's no time left for her, Kamala, to get better. I think the biggest story of the news cycle is, along with the Trump loves Hitler thing, is her performance last night. And he said, I want to highlight this. It was the last straw for a lot of Democrats. And that's remarkable to hear. The last straw. I imagine the people he's referring to are still going to vote for Kamala. So it's not that he's not talking about people who are flipping to Trump. I think what he's saying is Democrats, it's really sunk in for them that Kamala is a bad candidate and a bad politician. And for that matter, it's sunk in that as a result, she'll be a bad president. Like, this is not a person they can look to lead the party. She's going to be this weird, empty suit that they're trying to install in the White House. And that's pretty jarring when they're already coming off of a guy so old they have to manage everything he does. They'll have to go to someone who's so unprepared, so, let's be honest, kind of dumb that she can't handle the burden of the presidency. And I just think that's a remarkable thing to hear from a pretty neutral reporter, as we know Mark is.
I want to just close on this. She got worse since convention. She had her little shtick going for a while. She had her little kind of like, we're going to, I'm the candidate and we're going to protect Roe. As she has had to face the music and do interviews, her lack of capacity to answer basic questions. And it would have helped if she would have actually had a job. Hey, Kamala, if you actually would have worked at McDonald's, you would have been able to answer the question, what is your greatest weakness? Because I believe that is a question that everybody gets asked at every job interview. But it's very clear you've never been asked that question before.
I feel like even before we show Kamala's clips, I think the best thing to do is to just show how CNN's own liberals were reacting to it after this is over. So this is David Axelrod, a former staffer in the Obama administration, clearly wants Kamala to win, and his response was clip 98.
She doesn't want to answer a question. Her habit is to kind of go to word salad city, and she did that on a couple of answers. One was on Israel. Anderson asked a direct question, would you be stronger on Israel than Trump? And there was a 7-minute answer, but none of it related to the question he was asking.
A 7-minute answer. And not only that, there was another question also related to that where an audience member asked her how she would handle anti-Semitism on campus. And we don't have that clip, Charlie, because it is too long. Her answer was over 5 minutes long, according to the New York Times. I want to read the New York Times summary of this. This is another great one. Again, New York Times, clearly a publication that wants Kamala to win, but they have this take. Ms. Harris got one fairly straightforward question from a Jewish independent voter about how she would deal with anti-Semitism on campus. In an answer that stretched for more than 5 minutes, she briefly touched on hate crimes, but then jumped into a discursive tangent that addressed Mr. Trump's reported invocations of Hitler, his relationship with Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin, and his actions during the coronavirus pandemic. It was just all of these rambling answers. Politico is noting this. CNN is noting this. The New York Times is noting this. All the outlets that she needs to come out and, just robotically say, oh, Kamala presented herself to the American people in a firm way. She stood against Trump's fascism. All of that stuff, all the people who are supposed to be on our side are saying more or less, this was a disaster. She can't define herself. She can't give a clear answer to things. We have some of her clips that don't go for multiple minutes. We have clip 82, which is, it's a question a lot of people would get during a job interview. What's a shortcoming you have that you have overcome? And this is how she responds to it. Let's play number 82.
Is there something you can point to in your life, political life, or in your life in the last 4 years that you think is a mistake that you have learned from?
I mean, I've made many mistakes, and they range from, if you've ever parented a child, you make lots of mistakes too. In my role as vice president, I mean, I've probably worked very hard at making sure that I am well versed on issues, and I think that is very important. It's a mistake not to be well versed on an issue and feel compelled to answer a question.
Okay, that was one of the worst answers in the history. So just to be clear, she does not think she's made any mistakes, and this is the easiest question to answer because you can answer it in a way where the audience would draw sympathy with you and actually gain in standing. What she should have said is, honestly, Anderson, early in my career, I pushed myself too hard. And I didn't put my health first, and now I really hit a good pace, and I know my limits, and I know that I have to get my sleep, and I know that I have to, carve out some time for me and for family. But I made a mistake early on in my career to push myself too hard. Great answer, right? Everyone can resonate with that. She's obviously super ambitious, right? She obviously wants to be president. That's all she had to say. That is all she had to say. Instead, that might have been, Blake, one of the worst answers in the history of interview. I mean, not only was it a non-answer, it was like, I've done nothing wrong.
It was a non-answer. It was a non-answer, and also, it was almost passive-aggressive at the end, but she does give an answer. Her answer is, sometimes it's a mistake not to try to answer questions that you're not prepared for, implicitly, like this one, and just stares at him after she says that. It's really, it's unbelievable. Again, we can't play the whole thing, but another thing the New York Times flagged was she would get asked about a million different issues. She would get asked about, would you expand the Supreme Court? Do you want to raise taxes on people making over $500K? Should America pay for all the benefits for the illegals crossing the border? Are you going to make Roe v. Wade federal law? What are you going to do about Gaza? Her answers boiled down to Donald Trump would be worse. And that's just her answer to everything. This was flagged by our friend Mark Halpern last night, that there's been a clear pivot by the Kamala campaign to just say the Hitler word over and over again. Donald Trump is a fascist. She did say that last night. She said Donald Trump's a fascist. He's a fascist. He's Hitler. Hitler is bad. We are anti-Hitler as the Democrats, and that's our case to the American people. And it's a jarring swerve because it's very much just trying to rally the base, and you wonder, they went from appeal to the middle with, some middle-class rhetoric, talk about expanding the child tax credit, and now 2 weeks to go, it's suddenly just Hitler, Hitler, Hitler. And I think what you've got to say is I suspect her campaign has seen the numbers on early votes. They may have seen some internal polling. And what they're seeing is their base is feeling defeated. It's feeling not fired up. And they think we are going to get killed unless we boost our base turnout. How do we do that? We have to make them think like the Holocaust is about to happen.